First, it was Amazon, then it was Meta, and it was finally Twitter. Don't be mistaken, these platforms aren't going head-to-head with their revenues. It's actually much more sinister than that, because these platforms seem to be competing on who could lay off as many employees as they can in a short amount of time. Working for a tech company used to be the dream, with its supposedly high wages and the glamorous workplaces as they all huddle together in Silicon Valley, but recently, it has been the complete opposite. International tech masters here again to serve you the hottest news related to tech. One tech company laying off its employees is barely any news, but there seems to be a pattern in the last few months that is hard to ignore. Companies with big names have been firing their employees left and right, but why now? And why is it that all the big-time companies have been doing it? These tech companies used to be thriving and most are already multi-billion empires. But why are their employees losing their jobs? It was November when Amazon started to topple the first domino and other companies followed suit. After Amazon fired 10,000 employees, Meta toppled that number with 11,000 of its staff laid off. And just recently, Twitter fired 3,000 employees. Before we proceed with the rest of the video, we want to hear what you think. Take a guess as to why these massive tech companies are suddenly laying off thousands of their employees, and comment it down below. Now, you're probably having a hard time coming up with a reason, so here's when we help you out. We want you to visualize how life was at the peak of the pandemic and really think about how you went on with your day-to-day. If you're like any other person with internet access and was forced into quarantine, you would have had your eyes glued on your phone from early in the morning until you start to get drowsy and finally fall asleep. Back then, people would have their food delivered, have their work meetings in Zoom, and spend almost all day in TikTok to get distracted from the reality of the pandemic. This was very convenient to tech companies because they were meant to come up with ways to have you stick to your devices and use their digital platforms. Now, this is taking the long shot, and you must be wondering what the pandemic has to do with it, but bear with us. There has been a digital surge due to the necessity of replacing face-to-face interaction with online meetings or calls. Seminars became webinars. Brainstorming with your coworkers had to be done via Zoom. Even candlelit dinner dates had to be taken through video calls. And this notion has helped a lot of online platforms. There was more revenue because it was the only choice people had to communicate and do daily tasks while in the safety of their homes. But when you're already at the top, the only way is down. And in the case of these tech companies, they've been having a pretty rough downfall. Ever since restrictions were lifted post-pandemic, people's craving for real-life interactions were apparent. People went back to concerts to become part of the crowd. They went and ate out instead of ordering food online. People didn't find the need to conduct online meetings anymore because they can finally go to their school grounds or their workplace. And so this post-pandemic reality gave a real painful blow to some tech companies. But this isn't the only reason for the layoffs. The average Joe isn't the only one feeling the strains of the recession. Tech companies are also having a hard time as the economy slows down, and the stock market has been crashing as of late. This has caused a rise in interest rates, which has a lot of investors backing out and deciding not to take the risk. Tech companies aren't known to deliver results to their investors right away. All they can do is promise positive projections and long-term goals. But when the stakes are higher than ever because of an economic crisis, who would bet their money on mere promises? Perhaps this is why Elon Musk has sent an email to his staff that they would need to work hardcore hours and meet deadlines right away. This might be the solution that he thought of so he could impress investors on Twitter. Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg is just as troubled over the problems that tech companies are recently facing. He has promised to restructure their plans for Meta and have budget cuts in order to cope with the slowing down of their revenues. Current Amazon CEO Andy Jassy has also given a grim warning in the form of a memo to his employees. Jassy says that they're expecting to cut off 10,000 employees throughout the rest of the year and may even extend until next year. This is Amazon's solution to an expected economic downturn, and while the worst hasn't happened yet, this is the best they could do to adapt to the changes in the economy. Despite the holiday rush, Amazon still implemented a hiring freeze and even stated that they hired more than their supposed headcount during the pandemic. Were you expecting these tech companies to take such great losses, even though they were doing so well during the pandemic? There's another reason for these damages, but before we tell you, why don't you hit the like button? subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell. The last reason as to why these tech companies have been lessening their spendings and laying off their employees goes down to the advertisements. You might be wondering why that's the case if you were just bombarded with loads of ads before you could get on with listening to your Spotify playlist or finally getting to watch a video. That's because the market has been shifting on advertising businesses lately. People have been sensitive to their information and data privacy lately. Have you thought of something that you want to buy recently and magically it appears on the ads while you scroll through Facebook? That's because some invasive advertising businesses buy your data from online platforms so they could give you ads targeted specifically to you. We bet those ads on Facebook don't seem as coincidental with that piece of information. Lately, Apple has made it harder for these advertising companies to access your online activities and personal data. And recently, online platforms have been asking you whether they could track your activities on their website or app, something that they didn't before. Companies who mine your data for their advertising tactics were partly the reason why online platforms like Meta and Twitter get a lot of revenue despite providing you mostly free services. Your data sells for a lot of money, and now that data privacy has been more acknowledged lately, these advertising companies can't just buy your information without you knowing. So with those problems in mind, what is the next move for tech company CEOs such as Zuckerberg, Musk, and Jazzy? Zuckerberg has been transparent that they will be lessening their spendings and rethinking their budget plans, but Musk's plans are probably more aggressive than that. Just a few weeks ago, he tried to sell user verification on Twitter, but quickly withdrew that system after it backfired. Jassy stated that while he does it with a heavy heart, the layoffs will have to continue because they seem to have overhired during the pandemic. But despite what is happening in the tech industry right now, it's not all gloomy and hopeless. These employees who are exiting their companies have been veterans in Silicon Valley for years and have the skills to go have their own startup. With newly independent talents that have veteran skills, this might bring the spark back in Silicon Valley and have more ideas for future multi-billionaire companies. At the end of the day, though, that isn't enough motivation to cloud over the losses of the tech industry right now. This is the harsh reality that we have been facing. No sector remains unharmed by the recession and how everything has changed post-pandemic. You could be the richest company one day and have to deal with budget cuts the next. To sum it all up, people have lessened their screen time after safety regulations have gone back to normal. The recession has been weighing down on all of the industries, and the interest rate has been scaring off investors. Employees of tech companies are left scared as to whether they would be next in the chopping block, and there is no guarantee as of yet when the layoffs would stop. That is all for today's video. If you want to know more about the latest tech news, make sure to hit like, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to keep you posted.